Starting off this countdown, we have John Reed. John Reed was one of the 7 witches tried in 1697 Scotland. When he was caught, persecutors found that he had a mark on his loin. John said that the devil had nipped him there and that it indeed was a witch's mark. John also confessed that he was in service with the devil. The devil promised him wealth and abundance, but in return, John belonged to the devil. But John revealed that the devil broke his promise and never did anything he said he was going to do. On top of that, John admitted to attending a number of meetings with other witches. He also admitted that he was responsible for the torment of Christian Shaw. Christian was an 11-year-old who claimed she encountered a pack of witches who then bullied her and stole her milk. He also admitted that they all drowned her in the local well. As a result of his confession, it was very clear that he was a witch and he was locked away in a cell. The next day though, he was found dead. He had hung himself in his cell with his own scarf. It was believed that this was the devil's work. The devil convinced him to take his own life because John exposed him. Within the following weeks, the other witches close to John took their own lives in their cell as well. Again, it's thought that the devil possessed them and killed them off one by one because he was pissed with them. In our 4th spot, we have Janet Howitt. Between 1661 to 1663, 44 people in Beaufort, Scotland were accused of witchcraft. 7 of those accused were executed. The fate of some of the others remain unclear. One of the main women was Helen Guthrie. She was not a nice lady at all. This woman murdered her own stepsister and the stepsister's children. But she was like, wait, I'll help you, and claimed that she was able to identify other witches just by looking at them. So she said she would help them in the witch hunt if they went easy on her. She then went on to make up elaborate stories of witches meeting up at graves and eating the flesh of other humans, etc. The more she made up and pointed fingers, the longer she got to live, and same with her daughter Janet Howitt. Janet was also accused of being a witch like her mom. In fact, she had a witch's mark on her shoulder. She said it was from the devil biting it. She also said that it hurt for so long until the devil visited her again and stroked her shoulder. When he did that, the pain immediately stopped. Now, Janet was imprisoned with the rest of the accused, but we don't know what happened to her. They held a trial for her and no one testified against her. Plus, they only had the mark on her shoulder as evidence. We truly don't know if young Janet was let go or sadly killed. What we do know is that her plea date was 1666, 4 years after her arrest, so she was in jail for quite some time. Moving on, number 3, we have Elizabeth Jackson. The trial of Elizabeth Jackson was a pretty complex one. It seemed as if she was just an innocent woman whose neighbors wanted to get rid of her, so they created this elaborate story that she was a witch. So this took place in the mid-1600s. Elizabeth Jackson, or Elizabeth Howe, was accused of bewitching a 14-year-old girl named Mary Glover. At her trial, a woman named Elizabeth Burgess came forward being like, yeah, I witnessed her bewitch this poor young girl. Then she also claimed that she was visited by Jackson herself. During the visit, she was eating prunes when she wasn't able to swallow them, and then she threw up. So she believed that this was the result of Jackson putting a spell on her. She then went on saying that every time Jackson visited her, bad things would happen. One time she even claimed that Jackson put a spell on her. She said, and I quote, that she might cast up her heart, guts and all, adding, "Thou shortly shall have in thee an evil spirit too." The following night, Burgess claimed she was visited by a vision in the shape of a fox. The night after, she had a vision of like a scary shadow man. The third night, she was visited by another vision, just like Jackson promised in her curse. Then another child, Hannah Trumbull, started having weird fits and became ill. She claimed it felt like she was being pricked by pins and said it was the work of Elizabeth Jackson. A priest was eventually called to help Hannah, and while he was there, Hannah screamed out saying that Elizabeth was in the same room as them too, and that she was going in and out of the oven. No clue what that means, but everyone was like, so she's guilty, she's a witch. So there was a lot of evidence built up against Elizabeth. During her trial, she was searched and they apparently found marks all over her body. An article said, and I quote, "Under the hands of the woman, marks were found in diverse places of her body. These marks were determined to be unlikely to grow of any disease, but rather more like the marks which are described to be in witches' bodies." On July 19, 1692, she was executed by hanging. Dude, Old English is messed up. Moving on to number 2, 2 we have George Jacobs Sr. George Jacobs Sr. was an English colonist who was accused of witchcraft in 1692 during the Salem witch trials. George was quite the man around town. He had several run-ins with the law. He was known for having a violent temper, and in 1677 hit a man named John Tompkins Jr. 2 witnesses said, and I quote, "One blow, and if the latter had not held him by the arms, he would have struck him some more, he being in such a passion." Now he was fined for this. Then in 1674 he was sued by his neighbor after he chased some of his horses into the river where they drowned. He argued that the horses were trespassing on his property, whereas others thought he just liked wreaking havoc on town. Fast forward several years later, George Jacobs Sr. and his son, George Jacobs Jr. and his daughter-in-law and granddaughter were all accused of witchcraft. Everyone got off except for Jacobs Sr., and that's because he had a witch's mark. His body was searched and they found what was described as 3 teats on Jacobs. It was thought that if a person had an extra nipple, that this was a sign that they were a witch. Why? Well, it was believed that the extra nipple or teat was from when the devil or some demons sucked the witch's blood as a form of nourishment. It was said that Jacob Sr. had 3 of them. 1 in his mouth, 1 on his right shoulder blade, and 1 on his hip. Now, they weren't actually nipples though, it was just a 1/4 inch long fleshy thing protruding from his skin with a sharp point. They proceeded to stick pins in each of them to see what would happen. This was called the witch pricker. Apparently, if you are pricked and you don't have a reaction to getting pricked and you don't bleed, then you are a witch. Well, when they pricked each teat, Jacobs never reacted to it and he didn't even bleed. So he was found guilty on August 5th, 1692 and was sentenced to be hanged along with the other witches. And in our number 1 spot we have Elspeth Roch. Elspeth Roch was an alleged witch in Scotland during the early 1600s. When she was 12 years old, she claimed that she was approached by 2 men. One was dressed in all black, the other in green tartan. The man in green told her that if she followed his instructions, that she would be able to obtain magical powers. He told her to boil an egg and use the condensation from cooking the egg and take it and rub it on her eyes with unwashed hands. Sounds like an eye infection to me. He said that this would give her the powers to see and know everything that she wanted. So she followed his instructions and bam, it actually worked. So now I kind of want to go home and try it. I don't know, maybe it will work. And she actually developed clairvoyant skills. When Elspeth was older, she was visited again by the men. This time it was only the man in black. He showed up in her room one night. He told her that he was neither dead nor alive, but trapped between heaven and earth. He also told her that to maintain her magic skills, she needed to act dumb. That way, no one would suspect a thing. They'd be like, she's not a witch, no, she's way too dumb to be one. Well, eventually she was caught. In fact, she got in way more trouble because of her acting dumb. They were all like, she's fully a witch, she tried to trick us, let's kill her. At her trial in March of 1616, she confessed to using her clairvoyant powers to spy on people, and she would also use magical spells to cure illnesses. Furthermore, when they inspected her body, they found a witch's mark. She had what appeared to be a scar in the shape of bite marks on her shoulder. Later she confessed that she was bit by the devil and that was the mark that he left. She was charged with witchcraft and deceiving locals by pretending she was mute. In the end, she was executed by strangulation before having her body burned. Starting off this countdown, we have Alice Goodridge. In 1597, Alice Goodridge was tried after it was discovered she had 2 small bloody holes on her stomach. It looked like she had cut the witch's mark out of her skin. They were described as great warts that appeared to have been sucked. They believed that the devil would create these marks on their body after sucking the witch's blood from them as a form of nourishment. Not only that, but Alice apparently had a mark behind her arm and a number of other marks towards the top of her shoulder. But Alice claimed that the wound on her stomach happened after she accidentally stabbed herself. So the officials got a doctor to look at her stomach wound to see if it was the witch's mark or an accidental stab wound. Well, the doctor said, and I quote, "was like to ha been so a long time, for it was not festered and seemed to be sucken." AKA, it was not a new wound like she claimed it was, and it appeared as if someone was sucking on the wound. AKA, the devil, or demons. So poor Alice was tried as a witch. Now, how was she accused in the first place? Well, according to some articles I read from the archives, a young boy named Thomas Darling came forward claiming that he had been bewitched by Alice. How darling, get it? He became super ill and would have weird fits. Also, according to the boy, Alice sent her familiar Minnie to torment him. So that's why Alice was questioned and strip searched for a witch's mark. When they found several all over her body, she was killed. And if you guys are liking this video so far, then make sure to give it a big thumbs up because it really helps us out. Moving on to number 4, we have Isabelle Adams. In 1707, during the witchcraft trials in Scotland, a woman named Isabelle Adams confessed that the devil had given her a mark. She claimed that in the fall she encountered a man with a hat wearing all black clothes. She engaged with the man and it turned out he was the devil and ended up kissing her. He then told her that in his service she could be as rich as she wanted to. So she decided to renounce her baptism and make a pact with the devil. Upon doing so, that's when she received the witch's mark or devil's mark. And surprisingly, after confessing this all, she wasn't even killed. She was actually freed, she just had to pay a fine. In our third spot, we have the Witches of Huntington. The Witches of Huntington were several individuals in the UK who were found guilty of witchcraft. First, we have Elizabeth Weed. Apparently one night, 3 spirits came to her and told her to renounce God and make a blood pact with the devil. So she listened, and that's what she did. John Winnick also did the same, but only agreed to if the spirits would help him out financially. Others, including John Clark Jr., were also visited by these spirits and decided to also renounce God and make a deal with the devil. Out of the 9 people accused, 5 were found guilty and hanged. Well, John Clark knew that they were going to search everyone's body for their witch's mark, which they all had. So what did he do? He cut off his 3 days before he was searched. Literally gouged it out of his skin so that the mark was gone. But I'm kind of confused because wouldn't that create another mark? I don't know, but I think he was let off the hook while he watched his friends be killed. He literally said, and I quote, "It was foolish to let the authorities find their marks. I cut off mine 3 days before I was searched." He then denied ever making a pact with the devil or being a witch, even though he was. In our second spot today, we have Marie Leml. In 1662, Marie Leml was tried and confessed to being a witch. So this all went down during the reign of Charles II, just after the whole big witch craze that happened in the UK. Now, her case was unusual for one main reason. She was only 13 years old. But apparently she renounced her Christian faith and then got baptized by the devil. She even went on to confess to having intimate relations with the devil on multiple occasions. Apparently her and a number of other witches would meet up at night and would mingle with the devil. The devil would appear to them as a shape of a dark man with hooved feet. Other times he would appear as a brown dog. The group would then throw stones into the sea with the intention of hitting and sinking ships, all at the command of the devil. At her trial in 1662, she was accused of shape-shifting into a cat and using her magic to steal milk. This included placing a mug under the cow's udders and saying, "In God's name, God send us milk. God send it and lots of it." And apparently it worked. I don't know. Furthermore, when she was searched at her trial, they found a mark on the right side of her body. Marie claims that this was from the devil nipping at her. Due to all the evidence stacked up against her, she was found guilty and burned at the stake. And in our number 1 spot today, we have Annabelle Stewart. Annabelle Stewart was tried in 1678 Scotland after being accused of being a witch. But they didn't have much against her. Apparently, she was taught witchcraft by a local beggar, Catherine McTarget. Now, they thought she was a witch because she was a beggar and was greedy. When people would give her money, she would demand more. If people didn't give her money, she would threaten them and tell them that bad things were coming their way. Plus, when people did call her a witch, she never denied it. She just kind of went with the flow. So people thought she was one. Now, back to Annabelle. So they thought that Catherine was her teacher of witchcraft and then she was imprisoned. During her trial, it was revealed that she had a mark on her arm. She confessed that she received that mark from the devil. She was found guilty and she was going to be executed, but she was underage. So instead, they decided to fix her instead of kill her. They moved her to Glasgow and was looked after by ministers. There she would pray with them daily and follow their spiritual practices.
Coming in at number 5 we have Frapercha. This is a terrifying Christmas witch. Christmas is usually a time of togetherness, happiness, celebrations and lots of food, right? Well, in Austrian and Bavarian tradition, people have a little bit more to fear. Everyone has heard of Krampus, the half goat, half demon that punishes misbehaved children at Christmas, but few have heard of the ruthless Frapercha. This old hag is not to be underestimated. Perchta is often depicted as a crone with an iron-beaked nose, dressed in rags and sometimes carrying a cane. The other thing she carries is a bit more sinister, a massive knife hidden under her skirt, and she certainly loves to use it. You don't get the nickname Belly Slicer for no reason. Legends say that the witch punishes bad children and rewards the good. Sounds a bit like Santa Claus, however a lump of coal sure beats what her punishment entails. Frau Perchta apparently hates children who are dishonest and will scrape their tongues if they lie. Unfortunately, being an adult won't save you from the Christmas witch. Frau Perchta has a thing about domestic cleanliness and will punish women if their homes aren't clean enough. Ladies also feel her wrath if they leave their flax unspun, but the punishment doesn't seem to fit the crime. By the 12th night, or January 6th, if your home is messy, your flax left unspun, and you didn't leave out a bowl of porridge for her, Frau Perchta will slice open your belly with her long knife, remove your organs and fill your insides with rocks and straw. So if you want to avoid being disemboweled by Frau Perchta, maybe skip out on summoning her this Christmas. Coming in at number 4 we have Isabelle Gy. Isabelle Gy is a Scottish woman made famous for her extremely detailed confession of witchcraft in 1662. Unlike many other women at the time, she was not tortured for her testimony and willingly gave it on her own volition. Her confession apparently provides one of the more comprehensive looks into European witchcraft folklore at the end of the era of witch hunts. As a result, she was tried and allegedly executed. In her famous confessions that took place over several weeks, Isabelle Gy spoke about the time she encountered the devil, who she described as having cloven hoofed feet. She admitted to being in service to the devil, also claiming to have slept with him. Gy spoke in great detail about her coven's activities, like their abilities to shapeshift into animals. She detailed the different charms and chants she would use, and also said she was once entertained by the Queen of Fairies in her home. The details surrounding her execution are muddied at best. There's speculation that she was strangled and burned, while others say she was most likely beheaded. Coming in at number 3 we have Pesta. Pesta is the witch of pestilence and disease. When she roamed the land of the living, she was known for bringing great disease that killed thousands. It is said she was born during a great plague. From the destruction, she was created to ensure this suffering continued around the world. She is a hideous old woman dressed in black, carrying a rake or a broom. She traveled from farm to farm spreading disease. If she carried a rake, some at the farm would die. But if she carried a broom, all at the farm would die. The Black Plague was first brought to the northern countries via a ghost ship. In 1349, a ship carrying wool set forth from England headed north, but before the ship reached its destination, one by one, they started to get sick and die. Any attempts to quarantine the sick failed. The ship should have sunk or stayed lost at sea, but it is believed that Pesta guided the ship to shore and it reached Bergen Harbour in Norway. I've been there. Rats and fleas on board which carried the plague made their way into the country. The Black Death then spread to Sweden and then into Russia in 1351. This plague was so deadly it killed a third of Denmark's population and half of the people in Norway. It is said that if you did try to summon her, she would bring with her a great plague. Maybe someone was messing around with her in December of 2019. If so, please never do that again. In at number 2 we have Mendiola. Mendiola has a bit of a tragic backstory, but her legend still runs strong in the community in which she lived. In 17th century Leonardtown, Maryland, Mendiola was an old woman who was accused of witchcraft and ultimately suffered a fate similar to those of the Salem witch trials. Although historical records have yet to prove her existence, there were several dyers in the area at the time. So it's possible that Mol was simply a nickname. And despite this, there's a street, a stream, and a large rock named after this alleged witch. Legend goes that Mendiola was an old hag who lived a semi-isolated life on the edge of town. The townspeople feared her, and the ambiguity of her origin sparked a flurry of rumors. Some believed that she had killed her husband and was on the run, and others believed she was driven out of her previous hometown. There was speculation that she was a healer, and after a series of misfortunes plagued the town, Mendiola was blamed and labelled as a witch. On a freezing winter night, the townspeople gathered outside of her home with torches and pitchforks in tow, setting fire to the ramshackle home. home. Muldiah narrowly escaped the angry mob and took off deeper into the woods. Several days later, her body was discovered frozen solid on top of a large boulder, with one hand stretched out to the heavens as if cursing her tormentors. In the years after her passing, they say that the lands became uncharacteristically barren, livestock died, and the men responsible for leading the mob suffered bouts of terrible luck. Today, Muldiah is said to haunt the lands in which she died and can be found on the coldest of winter nights. The imprint of her body is apparently still embedded on the rock that she died on and is even on display in the town. Many believe that Muldiah partially served as an inspiration for the entity from the Blair Witch Project. We all know how that ends, so I would not recommend summoning Muldiah. And finally, in at number 1, we have the Bell Witch. In the top spot is none other than the infamous Bell Witch. The legend of the Bell Witch haunting is a staple in southern United States folklore, and a terrifying story at that, so terrifying that it even captured the attention of a US president. In the early 1800s, John Bell and his family settled in Tennessee on 320 acres of farmland along the Red River. For their first 10 years, their life was good until one day things changed. Strange paranormal occurrences began to plague the family. They would hear pounding on the walls, chains rattling, and John Bell even saw a peculiar and unnatural looking creature. It had the head of a rabbit and the body of a dog. The haunting progressed, and soon the entity was snatching blankets off of the children as they slept and even began to develop a voice. The family would hear faint whisperings and what sounded like an old woman singing hymns. The activity only got worse and the entity began attacking the Bell's youngest daughter, Betsy Bell, leaving welts and handprints all over her face and body. Its voice strengthened over time and they would hear it quoting scripture, carrying on intelligent conversations and still singing hymns. Word of the supernatural phenomena spread like wildfire and even garnered the attention of Andrew Jackson before he became the 7th president of the United States. When Jackson and his men went to investigate the claims, one man from his entourage was allegedly attacked by the Bell Witch and said he felt pins being stabbed into him and was being beaten severely. Some allege that Jackson later said that he would rather fight the British at New Orleans than fight the Bell Witch. Maybe for good reason too, because John Bell became the main subject of her wrath. The Bell Witch apparently tormented him and caused a steep decline in his health. John Bell eventually died and the witch took responsibility, claiming she had poisoned him. The Bell Witch is said to still haunt the property today and is regarded as one of the most famous pieces of southern lore. Coming in at number 5, we have Baba Yaga. In Slavic folklore, Baba Yaga is a witch who appears as a deformed or ferocious looking old woman. In Slavic culture, Baba Yaga lived in a hut usually described as standing on chicken legs. Baba Yaga may help or hinder those that encounter or seek her out. If she decided that she does not like you or wants to help your cause, you would meet a violent end. Baba is an ogress who steals, cooks, and eats her victims, usually children. She once lived in a hut surrounded by human skulls and a spike as to warn off those who might try to approach her. She was banished from the living realm due to her horrible acts. It is said that now and then she is summoned, and when this happens she wreaks havoc on children, taking more victims. Please don't ever attempt to summon Baba Yaga for favor, although she may decide to help if she chooses, but be warned it may be the last thing you ever do. Coming in at number 4, we have Malin Mattsson. Malin is a Swedish witch accused during the witch hunt of 1668 to 76. She was a widow and was also accused of being involved in her late husband's passing. Her main accusation was from the children of her village. They claimed that she had been abducting them and bringing them to a secluded place to perform a satanic sabbath. Reportedly, she was trying to persuade the children to join her in performing black magic. She was even accused by her own daughters, persuading the court of her guilt. Malin, along with Anna Hack, were the last victims executed for being witches during the Great Swedish Witch Hunt of 1668 to 76, often referred to as the Great Noise. What makes Malin Mattsson unique is that she's considered the only witch in Swedish history to have been burned alive. Normally witches were decapitated or hanged before their bodies were burned at the stake, but it appears Malin's refusal to admit to her guilt made the authorities less gracious in their sentencing. Malin firmly maintained her innocence and went out in history. In the end, she refused to shake hands with her daughters. It is said that before her death she gave her daughters to the devil and cursed them for eternity for their part in her sentencing. While burning, Malin did not scream, she did not cry or react to her pain. Some felt this further confirmed her witchcraft. Shortly after her death, one of her daughters was convicted of perjury and she too was forced to walk through death's door. It is now said that if you try to summon Malin, you too will be cursed for eternity like the daughter. She's angry and looking for revenge. revenge. You might stand a chance if you are not a woman, as she directs her curses at any woman who crosses her path, as if they are her daughters. But just to be safe, maybe don't try to contact her next time you're near a Ouija board. Coming in at number 3, Larona. Is she just a legend, a ghost, or maybe a witch? Some believe Larona to be a powerful witch. How else would she have remained so strong in the mortal realm after her death and able to trap so many victims? The story of Larona is that long ago a woman named Maria married a rich man with whom she eventually had 2 children. Then their marriage hit a rough patch. Her husband spent less and less time at home, and whenever he was home he paid attention only to the children. Eventually she sees him with another woman. Enraged beyond reason, some versions claim Maria drowned her 2 children, but she immediately regretted it, crying out, "Oh my children!" Maria is sometimes said to have drowned herself afterwards. However, not everyone believes that she did drown herself. Some say her rage sent her deep into seclusion, where she turned mad and began studying dark magic. She wanted revenge from what her husband had done to her, but she got lost in her grief and rage and forgot her original reason. All she could think of now was her children and the anger she felt. Now she roams the earth looking to steal children from their mothers. Children are warned not to go out in the dark, for Larona might snatch them, throwing them to their deaths in the flowing waters. There is one warning: if Larona is stalking you as one of her next victims, you will hear her crying. Once you hear this, there is little that can be done to stop her. If you were to summon her, she would not benefit you in any way. There is no bargain you could strike with her. She only knows pain and destruction. Coming in at number 2, we have Vet. Vet, also known as Mare, is a young woman who would bring bad dreams to people by sitting on them while they slept. She causes sleep paralysis in her victims. Mare often appears in Germanic folklore. She takes many different shapes and sizes. The tale of the Mare might be connected to old hag syndrome. You wake up and you can't move. You feel an immense amount of pressure on your chest that makes it difficult to breathe. And you can sense or see someone is in the room with you. It can be a frightening experience. For years, people have taken this experience as a physical encounter with a ghost, because when it happens, you are fully awake. You can see, hear, smell, and feel. So it feels like someone or something is holding you down. In essence, you are paralyzed. As well as this, when a person wakes too quickly, hallucinations can occur. This explains the smaller percentage of people who report seeing Vet rather than being paralyzed by her. Vet has a good connection with the mortal world. Some say she has somehow found a way to invade our nightmares, as this is when we are most vulnerable. It does not take much to invite her into your mind, so you need to be careful to not think or speak of Vet. Her attack is terrifying, as there is nothing you can do once she has her hands on you. Once she has you, she can hold onto your mind for years, so avoid her at all costs. And finally, in at number 1, we have Sarah Good. Sarah Good is world famous for being the first witch to be killed in the Salem witch trials. It all started on March 1st, 1692, when Sarah Good was charged with witchcraft along with Sarah Osborne and Tituba. Sarah Good was an easy target for witchcraft. She was a beggar, almost at the very bottom of the social ladder. When Sarah Good was charged, she was a complete wreck. Because of all the stress when she was charged at the age of 38, she looked as if she was 70 years old. To top it all off, she was pregnant and also had a 4.5-year-old daughter named Dorcas Good. She gave birth to the infant she was pregnant with in jail. Sarah Good's trial was not successful. The verdict was decided before the trial. She was a witch. Many people testified against Sarah Good, including her husband and her daughter, Dorcas Good. During her trial, she said that she was muttering psalms to herself. Unfortunately, she could not come up with any of the psalms during the trial, something that was too much of a coincidence. She also never attended church. Even the most trusting Congregationalists would find that a bit odd. In court, Sarah said that she did not attend church because she did not have clothes good enough for church. Unsurprisingly, she was found guilty, and because she refused to confess, she was sentenced to death. She stayed in jail until July 19th, 1692, when she was executed. Just before her execution, she was asked to confess. She refused. Instead, she cursed the people, saying, "I'm no more a witch than you are a wizard, and if you take away my life, God will give you blood to drink." It is said that she cursed the land, and a terrible fate followed those responsible for her death. It is said that those who have tried to summon her over the years have been cursed to either have dreadful luck in their life or meet a tragic end. Coming in at number 5, we have Holder. Holder is a witch who is rumored to live deep within the forest, secluded from the rest of the world. It is said that if you get lost in the woods, it is usually due to the influence of Holder's magic. She influences children to wander off on their own so that she may trap them. She has also been known to offer magical favors to children who find her. She just requests in return they visit her again with their friends or siblings. Once Hulda has captured and trapped the children, she will cook and consume them, leaving no evidence behind that they were ever there. If she doesn't eat the children herself, she will serve them to the next children who find her home as a sick punishment. It is believed that Hulda once had a daughter. The daughter was evil and was using dark magic to hurt people, including the rest of Hulda's family. When Hulda lost everyone who she cared for, she destroyed her daughter to make sure she could never hurt anyone again. Since then, she has spent her days luring children to her and destroying them as she did her own daughter. So don't wander off if you're ever walking in the woods and absolutely do not summon Hulda, or you might notice kids going missing around your neighborhood. Coming in at number 4, we have Agatha Harkness. Agatha is one of the original witches from Salem, though she was not caught. She started as one of the lower witches of her coven, but quickly rose in the ranks amongst her fellow witches. It is said that she practices dark magic. Her mother was once one of the greatest witches. She was confronted by the rest of her coven for practicing dark magic, something that was not allowed. They attempted to destroy her for her crimes, but they did not realize how strong her power was. She drained the power from every other witch in the coven, including her mother, making her the most powerful witch in Salem. It is said that since then she has continued to practice her dark magic, never encountering a witch as powerful or as cunning as she is. She is an evil witch who can manipulate the minds of those around her to commit horrible acts. She is not someone who you would like to cross or make angry. She also has the ability to wipe the memories of those who she controls, meaning they don't even know that it was not their decision to commit their crimes. It is said she still resides in Salem, where her coven once called home. Although it is not clear where, there are a number of historical sites in Salem one could visit if looking for Agatha. If you did want to contact her for some dark reason, it does not come easy. You have to make a sacrifice for her to bother making an appearance. She requires a personal sacrifice of something that you love, whatever that may be for you. Maybe burning your childhood toy or something else you were attached to emotionally. If you do summon her, you might not get what you wanted. If she likes you, she might grant whatever you seek, but if not, you might unleash a great evil not only on yourself but back onto the world. I think it would be best for everyone that we leave Agatha to whatever realm she is currently hiding in. Coming in at number 3, we have Jenny Greenteeth. Straight from English folklore is Jenny Greenteeth, a bit of a party city looking witch if you ask me, but she's not someone to cross. This witch has a myriad of different names like Wicked Jenny or Ginny Greenteeth, but her MO is all the same. The water-dwelling hag is said to have an affinity for drowning the vulnerable. This legendary witch has a bit of a monstrous appearance with long arms, sharp teeth, and wild hair. Her skin is a grotesque shade of green and resembles duckweed, a type of weed that is one of Britain's most common small water plants. Because of this, she's often associated with ponds and rivers with the weed growing on it, and it's said to be an indicator of her presence. From the 19th century onwards, children have been warned to steer clear from bodies of water, with the threat of Jenny Greenteeth drowning them. It was also said that if they stuck around a pond too long, her long arms would drag them into the water. Elderly folks will also suffer the same fate should they not listen to the warnings. Fun fact, Jenny Greenteeth actually inspired Meg Mucklebones in Ridley Scott's Legend. Coming in at number 2, we have Sally the Dunstable Witch. The story of Sally came from the late 19th century about an elderly woman who lived in Dunstable, Bedfordshire. She was allegedly a little old lady living alone with her cat. When perhaps out of boredom or being fed up with her life, she turned to the dark arts. Allegedly, the town found out about her practicing dark magic. They stormed her house and pulled her into the town square. They proceeded to burn her at the stake. But Sally had planned for this. Somehow, she found a way to survive the burning and took a new form. As she burned, she cursed the village and promised to get revenge. On her return, she was plaguing the church, performing her magic to make the village believe the devil was among them. Scared, they called in an exorcist. He discovered Sally and her magic. It is said that he backed her into a corner and was able to trap her. Once trapped, they buried her in the graveyard. It is said that they gave her grave a peephole, as they always wanted to tell that she was still in there. The townspeople were terrified she would once again return to terrorize them. She is still used as a tale to this day to get the children to behave, saying if they didn't, she might return. Maybe if you found her grave, you could peer in to see if she is still trapped, or maybe she's already escaped. And finally, in at number 1, we have Guahona. The Guahona is a creature in Cantabrian legend resembling a disfigured human female. She is thought to resemble one of the many forms of witches and hags of medieval Europe. She is covered from head to toe in an old thin black cloak. Her hands and feet are gnarled legs. Her face is yellow and consumed by rough and hairy warts. Her eyes are tiny and bright as stars. Her aquiline nose and mouth contain a single black razor-sharp teeth, which extends long enough to be under her chin and used to suck blood. The creature only appears at night. It is unknown where she is meant to sleep during the day, although it is suspected to be hiding underground. Guahona invades homes without getting noticed and walks silently towards healthy young children to suck their blood in their sleep by sticking her tooth into their veins. She does not kill them, instead leaving them almost bloodless, so when they wake up in the morning they will be tired, pale and discolored, so looking like me. Guahona also attacks adults. Why do all witches seem to hate children? It seems if you summon any of these witches you'll be putting children in danger. Being drained of all your blood does not sound like a nice way to die. Nope. Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with our list? What witch scares you the most? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below and perhaps we can do a part 4. And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up. And until next time, I'll see you later. Her mother was once the greatest witch, but Agatha... Her mother was once the greatest witch, but Agatha... Huh? You finished the sentence? I think it would be best for everyone that we leave Agatha to whatever realm she is currently hiding in. I'm Agatha. I was gonna say something else, I couldn't really be bothered. Meaning they don't even know that it is... Meaning that they don't even know that it was not... That is, was not. Huh? She also has the ability to wipe the memories of those who she controls, meaning they don't even know that it was not their decision. Okay. Although it's not clear where there are a number... Although it's not clear where there are number... It's not clear what their number is. Oh, okay. Although it's not clear where there are a number of historic... Comma! Use a comma! Although it is not clear where there are... there. She only knows pain and destruction. I could change her. Why am I talking? I don't know. Stop ad-libbing. Just having a breakdown.